as originators and salespeople are looking at the next company that they want to be with, they are asking some really pointed question. What's going to be my customer's experience, and what's going to be my experience? Hello, everyone. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the Mortgage Innovators podcast, where we deliver fresh and hopefully entertaining insights on all things mortgage and the innovation propelling our industry forward. My name is Dave Zitting with Avenue Technologies, makers of the IntraLine platform. And every Tuesday, you can find our rotating group of co-hosts who share their unique connection to the industry. I'm happy to have my co-hosts, Sue and Michael, here with me today. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, glad to be here.
Awesome, glad you're here. And a special shout out to our sponsor, Qualia. Qualia is the category-creating digital closing platform used by thousands of lenders across the country to seamlessly work with their title and escrow partners. By working better together, Qualia is powering lenders to deliver a differentiated closing experience for their clients. Through real-time communications, closing status updates, and workflow management, Qualia brings lenders together with home buyers and sellers, title and escrow agents, and real estate agents for a secure and seamless closing experience. Qualia is proud to have been awarded the Housing Wire Tech 100 Award for real estate, as well as CB Insights FinTech 250 Award. Discover how you can work more efficiently with your title and escrow partners at qualia.com/innovators. That's QUALIA.com/innovators. So today we're exploring how businesses are utilizing, showcasing, and leveraging innovation in an effort to recruit new talent into their sales and operational teams. We'll likely spend a bit more time on sales recruiting, but both sales and operations candidates are essential in today's market and especially in tomorrow's market. So I'd like to get us started with a quick question for you guys. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very most important, as we look to the future of our industry, how important is it to be a leader in technology and innovation as it relates to the weapons that we need in our arsenal to competitively recruit into our organizations?
Go ahead, Michael.
11?
All right, I was expecting a 12 or 13.
Yeah.
I would concur. I think it's incredibly, incredibly important. I don't think you can underscore it enough, but that's what we're gonna unpack today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I agree, you guys. 100% agree. And I really like this topic. And it's interesting as we are seeing the industry unfold with new types of competition coming in. You know, in some of our past segments, we talked about how technology is delivering an overall experience instead of segmenting it into these kind of compartmental points. And it does look like that as originators and salespeople are looking at the next company that they want to be with, they are asking some really pointed question. What's going to be my customer's experience, and what's going to be my experience, right? And no longer can a company say, oh, we got all the basics. We got this great LOS, this point of sale. We've got this cool widget that does this, thing for you. Everything you'd expect. Now let's talk interest rates. Well, or products. We're selling mortgages, and there's only so many of those things, right? And so it certainly is interesting to see how new companies are coming to the platform, and they're leading the entire recruiting effort with technology. And then kind of down the road, they're saying, all right, now let's go do a comparative analysis on products or interest rates and whatnot. But experience being a key aspect of that in attracting new talent to your organization, and also getting your staff, your sales staff and whatnot to be the recruiters as well. Tell their friends, hey, you got to come over here. This thing is just amazing, and this is why. So I'd love to get into those weeds a little bit today. Maybe thinking about not necessarily naming specific technologies, we can, I suspect, but really just kind of what is contemporary, what is working out there, what do we see that ends up being kind of a fresh message and a fresh approach to leveraging technology, and the attitude of innovation, right? Are we keeping up with the game as an organization? And what's going to happen tomorrow? Because, you know, let's face it, technology, as much as Moore's law has come to an end supposedly in 2021, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're not going to stop innovating. We're not going to stop leveraging technology. So let's jump in there, guys. Any thoughts on that front?
Yeah, I'll kick it off here. I mean, I'm sorry, I've got a really aggressively friendly cat that has joined the podcast today.
Awesome.
Sorry. But you know, the thing that I was thinking about as you're teeing this up is that especially consider the market that we're coming off of, I want to say, or are we even coming off of it, right? We've been in this incredible climate where there has been, you know, so much business. And I think what that means is, as smart originators, the kind that everybody listening wants to recruit, there's a couple of different things that they're thinking about. You know, number one, it's very clear you can always make more money. You cannot make more time. And I think what has gotten really tapped for people over the past year is their time. And they're, you know, I think a lot of originators are to a point where it's like, you know, like grateful for all of the great opportunity, grateful for the money, but man, give me something that's going to help make me more efficient and is going to help make me more productive and is going to serve my customers and communicate with my referral partners in a better way and save me some time and make things easier for me, right? Because they're as we do, we've all been through lots of these cycles. You gotta, you know, make hay when the sun shines, as we say, but the sun's been shining a long time and people have made a lot of hay. And I think right now people are weary, right? I think also when you take a look at the shift to the purchase market and originators are saying they know that this is what's coming, what kind of technologies are going to be supportive of that? Where are you going to be able to connect with those referral partners? Where are you going to ensure that, because that purchase transaction is so different than the refinance transaction in terms of what the borrower needs for communication. There's this referral partner involved that isn't even there on a refinance. And so what are you bringing into your tech stack? Those are the messages that I think are really going to resonate with originators out there, kind of that time element, the time and productivity, and also the shift to the purchase market, and what is a company bringing that's really going to make a meaningful difference as the originators make that shift as well.
That's excellent. I totally agree, Sue. That question of what's going to be my experience, what's going to be my customer experience, they're definitely blending together very, very much. Time, underscore that so much. You know, it's so interesting how our industry is now really, really waking up to the fact that there's no longer a 9 to 5. That's kind of gone. And other industries, you know, the real estate industry really hasn't been a 9 to 5 industry for decades. Kind of, you know, it definitely has its, this is when we do these things and those things and the others, but I wouldn't say a 9 to 5 industry. The lending side of it very much was a 9 to 5 industry for decades. And now that's changing, where different platforms can have originators come in. And I joked in one of our last segments, it's kind of like in Spain, work a little bit in the morning, take a big break in the afternoon, then work till 9 o'clock at night and have dinner at 10. And it seems like we're moving in that direction. I can't remember the last time I ever had dinner before 9 o'clock. And so as we look at that, and we are changing that, the gig economy is definitely speeding that up. And the world's just becoming more accustomed to, you know, I could just weave my career into my life. And how has technology helped me do that really well? I think that's a big question mark. What happens to the system after 5 o'clock is a part of that. And how does it allow me in these blocks of time that I do my job? How does it do it effectively, productively, quickly, so that I'm not wasting any time? You nailed it. I totally agree with you, Sue, 100%. Michael, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I'm thinking of just how it's evolved over the last several years. You know, when I first, you know, was heavily involved in like recruiting, the number one thing that everyone was always asking was around products. You know, what products do you have? Are you direct to the agencies? You know, those were like the key topics that we would get from prospective loan officers and branches coming in. Once we started to see that kind of standardized throughout the industry, where, you know, again, everybody's got some niches here and there, but for the most part, you know, most of the larger, organizations are direct to the agencies. They've got, the products that most loan officers need. So over, I'd say, over the last 2 to 3 years, it's really shifted to, what Sue was talking about is, what's your tech stack look like? That's one of the key things right now when we've got people that come in for home office visits or virtual visits. It's like we have to have a tech overview on there because they want to know, what tech pieces do you have? How do they work together is the biggest one now, because you're starting to see, again, most of the top lenders have similar tech stacks. Or, to one of the comments you made earlier, they've got the LOS, they've got a point of sale, they've got a CRM. So they've got kind of that core. And then it's like, what else do you have? And more importantly, how do they talk to each other? So that's where we, at least, in my role now, deal a lot with is the questions of, how do they work together? How can I use this? And that's what we spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, Michael, I see that, and I'm guessing that's more on the sales management, recruiting management side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking of recruiting myself, showcasing a platform, you want to do it in a cohesive sort of, hey, here's your experience you're going to have, right? It's very seamless, and you're really aiming for that candidate to say, oh, wow, that's really cool. Oh, finally, somebody finally thought of that. That's what you're aiming for. Without them having to ask for, hey, explain to me your entire tech stack. What do all these things do? Just showcase the experience. Yep. They come out of it impressed. And if you come join us, this is what's going to happen. And really not getting into, maybe the brand of the vendor tech behind it or whatever, right, but really showcasing your company and what experience are you going to have with our company that's very seamless. You hit this button and these kind of things are going to happen for you. I really think we're aiming for that, but I appreciate the respect we put in the fact that, look, we need these different technologies to make sure they're all talking to each other. To do that, the presentation of that, I think, is critical as well. So, Michael, when you see that, do you guys work together from like the technology management and the sales management in a capacity to say, how can we just showcase an experience for a persona, let's say the loan originator or the consumer?
Yeah, we do. We've kind of taken our various tools and we kind of brand it into what we kind of call our edge tech, is the way that we've branded it. So we do present it in kind of the overall experience. But what I will tell you is almost every person now, even when we start showing them some of the things, they're like, wait a second, what CRM is that? What point of sale is that? Cool. Because it's like this familiarity that they have, or it's these things of like, okay, I want to make sure you guys have this tool because, I've already learned it and I don't want to have to relearn everything. So that's where we have to tie in some of the automation and some of the things that are going to work for them behind the scenes, because that's the biggest thing is they're like, okay, I'm already going to be in the middle of a transition. How many new things am I going to have to learn? And how is that going to potentially, push me forward or set me back on, ramping up my business as I transition over?
They're forcing and creating a lift and shift, Sue, just like you talked about.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I was going to say that. Well, but yeah, you're right. That's what we talked about in our last, I think our last episode was, and I think Michael brings up such a great point, that when you're talking to a great originator, that's their mindset. And I get so frustrated when I hear people say, oh, loan officers are lazy. They're the least lazy people that I know. I mean, there's lazy people in every profession. It's not laziness. It's pure drive towards the things that are going to do the, right things for their customers, for their referral partners, and their own family, right? And usually that's not, oh, I have to figure out how to transfer a bunch of stuff and do these things and learn a new system. That's the kind of stuff that just puts on the brakes when somebody's, on the super highway. So I think, Dave, to your point, and I think it's one of the things that I know, Michael, that you all do really well is is to talk about that lift and shift and say, you know, hey, yes, it may be a little bit of a different solution, but we've done this before. And so we're going to tell you, here's how we're going to make this transition. And you know what you're going to find is these three things are actually going to be even better for you. And I think so assuring on that, you know, what that lift and shift looks like and the kind of support that you're willing and able to offer is really important. And I also think it's important that too often, to the point you're saying, Dave, about naming a technology name or, you know, something like that, I think it's a mistake to even get too into the technologies. I think telling stories about here's the outcomes that you're going to be able to get, and hey, guess what? I'm going to prove it to you because we've got maybe a little video from one of our producers that, man, is a lot like you, and here's what they found with this. I mean, just doing a short little video, and you don't have to overproduce it and make it crazy, but tell the true story of these are the outcomes that people are getting. It's not about here's all the nicky-nacky stuff. It's that these are the results that our originators are getting right now, and we want you to have that same result too.
So Sue, in that, and I love that. Is there a strategy then in literally packaging innovation in your organization, right, and branding it? So, you know, we've got all of the, and Michael, it sounds like you guys have actually done that, and you use the term edge or something. There's sounds like some proprietary bridging technologies and whatnot. And then you're like, you know what, why don't we just lead with that? Why don't we lead with, hey, if you join us, you're going to be operating within this edge technology innovation strategy. And of course, you know, we've got these other things API'd and bolted into that. But to your point, Sue, wait, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the experience of edge. Let's talk about the experience of how we operate as an organization. Is that where companies need to go? And let me add to the question, because I've lost a recruit before in a past life where the two companies all, you know, had high marks, but for whatever reason, the other organization had a set of technologies that they were familiar with, to your other point, Michael and Sue, the lift and shift. And it was like, oh man, my team's just gonna like this because they're already using, you know, some of these organizations like Encompass and whatnot. I just have such a big percentage of the marketplace. And that lift and shift is very, very difficult. Change is so difficult, right? And so what is the strategy, and are we finding that businesses are needing to sort of brand their culture and brand their innovation and technology strategy into and literally put a brand on it, as to what is going to be your experience, not necessarily pointing out all the different techs? And that's what I hear you saying, Sue. I like that a lot.
Absolutely. And Michael, you could certainly speak to this, but I know that a lot of, you know, in fact, our fellow co-hosts who aren't on have done the same things in their company where they say, this is the experience that we're offering to you as an originator. But I do think it goes back to, for me, and Michael, I'd love to hear your thoughts, really being able to tell a compelling story around it and not make it about, here's the checklist, here's the things we have. Oh, those aren't the things you have. Well, you know, don't do it like that. You know, tell the story of like, these are the outcomes, but be ready for those objections. And I think, again, every single person has had to make a shift from one thing to another thing at some point. And so being proactive with that, being prepared for that, share how you're going to support that, assuming that you are, and, you know, share the success stories of somebody just like you who had that same concern, and here's what happened for them.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think it's a knowing your audience, right? Because you get those LOs that come in, and I've had people sit in front of me and they're like, this is a non-starter. And I'm like, okay, well, we have that, but here's why we have it under this brand, to Sue's point, kind of telling the story. Or the beauty with a lot of these technologies now is two companies can be using the same exact tool and have some different nuances built out on it. And that's something that we do as well. So just because you're maybe the company you came from, you know, used, you know, this point of sale system, here's how we have it set up, and here's the benefits to our LOs, and here's some nuances that we've maybe customized or, you know, paid to build out specific to our workflow, that might be slightly different than what you're used to. So I do think it's a little bit of hybrid. I think as much as we can, we try to go the route of just, you know, telling more of the story aspect of it, but then having that shown, you know, okay, here's what the platforms that this experience is built off of for those people that do want that that level of kind of security of knowing, okay, this is something that I've used before, or this has a kind of an industry name to it.
Comfort in the lift and shift. I've adopted that as lifelong vernacular now, Sue. I agree with you wholeheartedly. So comfort in that phase, in that process of understanding what it is, and to both of your points, if it is different, being the way we've deployed some aspect of a technology or our entire package of the way that you're going to operate. Each organization is a little more rigid versus relaxed on allowing big teams to do different things and what have you. I suspect that a big strategy in that aspect of it is, look, it's not, this is going to be your experience, and this is how awesome and great it is. And if you have any gaps or questions, we have this awesome training orientation, live webinars going 24/7. You know, even if you're in the middle of an application and you stumble on something, we've got somebody there that can help you get through. I suspect that is a big part of it as well, so that as a user, they can come in, Michael, to your point, and Sue, to your lift and shift point, have comfort in, yeah, I'm going to join your team. Because not only do you have the technology, but you're going to help me actually fly the airplane. So that's awesome. Very cool. Okay, so let's talk just for a bit about operations. Do we see organizations investing in packaging and expression of technology in recruiting in the back room, right? Processing, underwriting, all of these, you know, closers, all this other stuff. It's amazing to me what a closer was, you know, 6 years ago and what a closer does today. It's like night and day different, right? It's this huge, massive job, and processing is the same, and underwriting is become more complex. They've all become more complex, and in this market too, and it is starting to shift, and certainly that'll be easier down the road a little bit when pipelines aren't jammed full of refinances, but it's still really busy, still plenty of refinances going along, and tons of purchases, right? We can't keep a home on the market for more than 10 seconds. And so it's really hard to recruit those operational people in as well. What are we seeing out there in innovation and technology to let that backroom person know that, you know what, you're going to get home and see your family before 9 o'clock at night if you come over with us, because, you know, here's the way we operate, and technology is going to help automate a lot what you do. Are we seeing strategy develop in that front as well?
Yeah, I can share. I had the interesting opportunity actually over the last couple of days to sit in on a Strapmore operations workshop that they do with a group, an invited list of lenders. And so it was very interesting listening to that, because you hit the nail on the head, Dave, is that there needs to be continuous innovation and really promoting what they're doing to make things more efficient and more productive on the back end. There tends to be such a big focus on, you know, the front end, right? But, you know, what I kept hearing over the last couple of days is all of the things around appraisals, right? It's just such a huge issue right now in terms of the timeliness, the communication, like all of these things surrounding appraisals. And I think, you know, as lenders seek to solve those problems and are continuing to innovate to solve those problems, absolutely, that is ringing the bell of the operations person that you're talking to as well. Communication, you know, that was one of the number one things when people just, you know, said what would be, you know, helpful is, and what are consumers asking for? It's just, I think you almost can't communicate too much, especially as we're shifting to the purchase market where there's a lot more emotion on the line. And, you know, you think about that appraisal being delayed. As a refi, you're curious. As a purchase, you're freaking out, like, about to know what that appraisal is. And so,
Exactly.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dave, because I do think that that's an ongoing concern that needs more attention.
Excellent, Michael.
Yeah, I think so. I think from like the operational side, some of the stuff that I'm, you know, seeing a little bit more around, you know, just efficiencies, but things like ICR, OCR, you know, things to really enable, you know, people on the operational side to really take action on the actionable items versus spending time just reading through, you know, 80 pages of self-employed tax returns,
Yeah.
or, those types of things to really, get those outputs, and then take action on it, have that visibility. So I think, I think it's been in the works for a while, but I really think that, more of the AI stuff, but around, ICR, OCR is going to help, from an underwriting standpoint, from a processing standpoint, because you think about it, a lot of their time is, reading through things versus, just the decision-making aspect of it.
Data in general, ICR, OCR, all the other ways that data is aggregated, and some of the technologies, data-driven technologies that I see that are being developed in the back rooms that people aren't aware of today, they really blow your mind. In that, I do think that in the near future, there's quite a bit different experience on that front, Michael. I agree with you, where companies have got to adopt that sort of thinking. They should be adopting that sort of thinking today. If not, they're going to be way behind of what's coming up the line. And I think you're right. I think that is big time a recruiting tool for any organization that says, look, we need people still to do this function, and we can showcase to them, here's going to be your experience, and all of this automation is going to be there. Another thing that comes in that automation, to your point, Michael, is quality. And if an individual, has a 30-page, multiple sets of tax returns, they're nervous. They're like, man, I hope I get this right. Versus they know if a system OCRs it, all the data is going to get in there and it'll lump sum it. Now they can make a human decision if that's necessary.
Yeah.
And so they're more comfortable doing their job, leveraging technology, right? Not, oh my gosh, I hope I don't get this wrong and create a reputational stain on my job as an underwriter, let's say, or as a processor, one of those other things. Awesome, guys. Well, listen, just in the few minutes that we have left, I certainly want to spend some time on another aspect of technology and recruiting. There's also retention. Recruit your own people, right? That I always said we have to always be recruiting our own people, and making sure that they're happy. You don't recruit somebody and then turn your back on them. That's not going to get you anywhere. And so that's really important. And that in that category, I think it's really about staying relevant, staying ahead of the game. I think you have to stay ahead of the game. I don't know that you want to be bleeding ahead, unless it's through pilots and UAT and different things like that. But I do think that you've got to be able to showcase that we're not just keeping up, right? We're out there looking ahead. We want to beat the competition. If I'm an originator, and I originated for years, like you guys, I want to be with a company that's going to show up every so often and say, I've got a new ability for you to beat your competition.
Yep.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What are you guys seeing out there? And do we see the industry, now that everybody's kind of waking up to, hey, wow, refinances might actually not be the only thing we do in the future? Is there an awakening there of, wow, we really need to go out and sharpen our skills in that front?
Yeah, I definitely think so, and I think it's from a couple of different angles. I think one is around, having your own internal teams to help support and drive awareness, training, adoption on those tools. Especially as we talk about how many of these tools now integrate, with one another. We can't just, as a lender, we can't just leave it on our vendor partners to deliver this great experience. They might not fully understand the way that our experience is flowing through between the various platforms that they're integrated with. So I think that's one key thing, is really having that internal, team to help and support it. And I think additionally, just the evolution of information. I think it used to be, 10, 15 years ago, a company would bring new tools to their loan officers. Whereas now, I'm getting emails every day from loan officers like, hey, I was at a realtor event and these 3 vendors were there. Why aren't we using them? Or, hey, if we rolled, are we going to be looking to this? And half the time it's been tools that we already have, and it's just that they might not have seen it.
8 months ago.
Yeah. But, I think it's too listening to to those people. And I think the retention comes from when you're implementing things that they've expressed are important to them, because then that shows that we're listening and we're trying to make their experience even better.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you just said, and I would say that being super proactive as we do head into a market and things start to decline a little bit, that's when originators who have been frustrated, on the edge, but saying, you know what, I can't right now because my pipeline's too big, they're going to be very susceptible. And so I have always felt like you don't want to be fearful, but you do need to be a little paranoid, because all these conversations that we're talking about, oh, go have these with recruits, those recruits that we're talking about are somebody else's dear employees that they want to keep their arms wrapped around, just like yours. And so, as you're thinking about these conversations, how would you feel? Do you feel solid that if any one of your originators, somebody's coming to them and trying to woo them and tell them this great story about all the things that they have, are they solid on what your story is and why they are with you and why they believe it? So this is not, I'm so glad you brought this up, Dave, because this is not about just how do you bring in new people, but it's like, how do you keep a moat around your own people, and how do you keep your arms wrapped around your people? And it takes some attention and it takes some time.
100%. I agree with that. And a comment that sparked my interest that you said, Sue, is a book that I read. I refer it to, recommend it to everybody as much as possible. It's Who Moved My Cheese by Ken Blanchard, right?
Yeah.
I think most great salespeople in our industry have read that, and Gung Ho. I also am a pusher of Gung Ho as well. But Who Moved My Cheese is important, and it's like you said, you got hem and haw sitting in this cheese station thinking the cheese is never going to run out, and you got Sniff and Scurry over here, with their shoes around their necks, ready to go. No matter how much cheese is in the station, they're always willing to get out into the maze and find more cheese stations. And I do think that as an industry, to your point, Sue, that we get a little wrapped up in, oh, this cheese is never going to go away. Well, the cheese gets a little stale, goes bad, doesn't work anymore. The rate goes up a little bit. The pipeline shot that we did all this work on and stuff like that. We've got to keep our shoes around our necks and get out there in the maze every day, even if we're busy. I love that. How do we express that to the sales team and retention, and that we're staying ahead as an organization? That's great. I love it. Guys, we're actually to the end of our podcast today, and I absolutely appreciate so much you guys participating, and certainly want to thank our audience for joining us today. And if you like what you heard, then please go to the Mortgage Innovators YouTube channel and subscribe. And until then, we'll see you next time.